In a predominantly Islamic society, you should make the non-Muslim feel like he needs to become Muslim in order for him to have equal rights. It is important for the Muslim to make the non-Muslim believe that there is a benefit for the non-Muslim to become Muslim. And one of the ways you do it is by the hadith that you just mentioned. And by the way, you're absolutely right. This is a hadith sahih. But the implementation of this hadith cannot, the ulama have said, cannot be implemented in a society such as this, because this will bring maybe more difficulty to the Muslim communities or the Muslim individual if he did that based on that. There was a time when this area that we call Turkey, there was no Muslims, there was no Islam, right? And then people came, and in Turkey in particular, it was not a result of merchants coming with da'wah. It was a result of jihad. People became Muslims as a result of the fact that Muslims came with the sword, established Sharia, and as a result of the establishment of Sharia, many people found that there's a need to become Muslims in order to avoid fitna. Okay. Now, your forefathers, if they were from there, because there was a chance that they could be from Arabia too, you don't know. They were Kurdish, okay. Don't tell anybody. I'm just joking, you know that. The benefit may not be at the time of the people accepting Islam sincerely out of belief, but rather out of fear. Okay? But the generations to come, now you as a Muslim, you are happy that your forefathers, what happened? They accepted Islam even though it may have been under the sword, right? You are happy with that, no? Because you are happy with being what? Allahu Akbar. Are you worried now about your forefathers having been, told to accept? Well, they were not told to accept Islam. There were conditions that existed according to Sharia that forced certain people to avoid difficulty. For example, jizya is one of them, right? Jizya is one of them. Paying this little taxation out of the people that are not from Islam. Why? Because it's a price they pay for being protected by the Muslim authority. لا إكراه في الدين. لا إكراه في الدين is an ayah whereby it is in Surah Al-What? Surah Al-Baqarah. Very good. It means that you cannot force a person to actually believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. But you can force the person to live by Sharia. The purpose of jihad, for example, can I say that word in Canada? The purpose, you can't say it in the United States, I can tell you that much. The purpose of jihad is not to force people to convert to Islam. Because you said from the Quran, لا إكراه في الدين. Yeah. But it is to establish the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because it brings about balance and justice for all creatures, Muslim and non-Muslim. If Muslims can walk into a place and establish Sharia without a drop of blood, then that's what should be done. We should not walk into a place because the concept is, okay, this is the way it has happened up until now, no. The establishment of Sharia, sometimes the Muslims walked into or entered into a village or an area, and they did not have to engage in any armed conflicts. The people said, yes, we accept. There are some Muslims amongst us these days who want to go around and say, oh, Islam was never spread by the sword. That's a blatant lie. It was spread many times by the sword. The Sharia was spread by the sword. The implementation of Sharia was spread by the sword. Strictly according to Sharia, if we assume that we are, living in some kind of khilafah situation, some kind of Islamic authority, even though it may be one spot, like Somalia, by the way, right? Yes, well, we don't. True. Certain parts of Somalia, Sharia has been established. And there is a Sharia authority. There is a Shari'i authority in Somalia. At least most of the country is under certain people who have established Sharia, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. So under those circumstances, you would only be able to leave to go to the Bilad al-Kufr, what they call Dar al-Kufr. Dar al-Kufr meaning the abode of the kuffar. Under certain circumstances. Da'wah In some cases, if you don't find the cure for a sickness in your own area and you have to go to the kuffar, then you can go for a certain period of time to find the cure and then you return. I mentioned da'wah, right? But even da'wah, you cannot go indefinitely and say, I'm going for da'wah. You know, in the meantime, you're filling your belly and you're not doing anything. No, the Islamic Authority will ask you to come back every so often, and then you have to report, how is your da'wah going? You know, do you have any witnesses to your da'wah? Tell us about it. Let's see, passing through to go from one place to another, sometimes the Muslimin, they had to go from the lands of Islam to reach another land of Islam, they might have had to go through what? Land of the kufr, land of the kuffar. So there are circumstances under which a Muslim is allowed to leave and go to get more rizq, to get more sustenance, is not one of them. You cannot say, Islamic Authority, I'm sorry, I'm poor here in Somalia, I need to go to Canada. Can you allow me to go to Canada for a few months to make some money and then come back over here? The answer will be no. Legally in this country, there are certain things that are part of the legal framework of this country whereby you can espouse ideas that the rest of the society doesn't like, but just don't break the laws, because then you're going to get in trouble. You follow? Even though most of the ulama, the majority of the ulama believe that niqab is required for the woman. It is required, it is wajib. Most of the ulama of fiqh prefer that a woman wears niqab over the hijab that we see here. Because these days we see hijab on the head and then we see tight jeans and tight shirts. And this person obviously does not know what hijab is. She thinks it's just something that she wraps around her head. I'd like to wrap something around her head. When khilafah is established, you need to pack your bags and go home. Okay? You cannot say, I'm going to do da'wah, brothers in Somalia. You Taliban in Afghanistan. Don't ask me to come back because I'm staying here. Because that would show hypocrisy on our part if we did that. So do you know something, brothers? This is a very unpopular thing to say. When the Taliban established an imara, an Islamic imara in Afghanistan, the reason why it was easy to attack them and get rid of them is because none of us went to live over there. Because if most of us said, okay, they've established an Islamic state in Afghanistan, let's pack our bags and go, and they were inviting us to do this. Most of us said, no, how am I going to eat in Afghanistan? Afghanis don't have food. This is not a sign of sincerity. This is a sign of hypocrisy.